Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. It's wonderful to be with you again. How are you, ladies? I see Marcia is here. Hello, Marcia and Terry Green in California. Madonna, it was so good to meet you at the quilt show last week. So glad that you're here tonight. Hello, Miss Thomas. Welcome. And Yvonne is here. Hello, Lisette. Thank you for letting me know there was no sound. The countdown timer doesn't have sound. So it was okay that you didn't hear anything. No worries. Hello, Diane. Hopefully you can hear me now. Yes, Diane, thank you for letting me know. You can hear me now. Wonderful. Hello, Tara. How are you? And hello, Deb. Well, tonight we're going to talk about two things: portraits and postcards, quilted portraits and postcards. And I have a special guest tonight. But before we talk about our special guest and introduce her, we're going to get some updates. So many of you know that I was at the Pennsylvania National Quilt Extravaganza last week. It was a fantastic show, and Madonna was there. She was in the class. We had a great time. She came to the lecture. Thank you, Madonna. You sat up front. You were in my cheering section, and I appreciate that so much. We had fun time learning ruler quilting and learning about how we can place designs in our quilts. That was the lecture. It was on the main stage. We had a fun time talking about quilts and how we can put designs in the quilts. And I can't wait to share with you some of the new classes for many of you who are first timers. Maybe you don't know who I am. Yes, Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and my specialty is free motion quilting and ruler quilting. And I offer classes in person and online. So here's some updates from what is happening online. There's a brand new class, How to Set Up Your Machine for Free Motion Quilting. I help you set up your home machine for free motion quilting success. I give you my 8-step process, which also includes the thing that most of us are afraid of. What is that? Tension, setting our tension. I give you the step-by-step process so that you can have a successful result with setting up your machine. The video you're watching is the video that's in the course, but it's sped up. And you can see this is part of the tension test. And I show you step by step how to do it. So that's new on the website. It's an online class, 24-hour access, 7 days a week, unlimited access. It's yours. It's yours. You can watch it over and over again. And the best part of all my online classes is that I become your quilting coach. In a private chat between me and you, you can send me photos, you can ask questions, we can have an ongoing conversation about your journey with machine quilting. The next class, which is brand new, is called Quilter's Canvas. It's a special quilt block designed specifically for you to have a canvas to feature your favorite free motion quilting designs. And it's an opportunity to create not just an art quilt like this one with 9 blocks, or you can do a table runner. It's really up to you. Maybe you want to make something bigger, a lap quilt, and really have fun with free motion quilting. I don't leave you hanging because in the course you get to learn, guess what? More free motion quilting designs. I give you several design tutorials step by step on how to create these edge to edge designs. I want you to be successful. I'm so glad that you have this opportunity to take the next step in your free motion quilting journey with the help of a quilting coach. Yes, that's me, the quilting coach. So those are the updates for the online classes, except for one more update. It's not an online class, it's a quilting cruise. How many of you know about the quilting cruise that I am doing with two other amazing teachers, Guyleen Fitzgerald and Latifa Safir. We, the three of us, are going to the Caribbean, a 9-day cruise. It's in November, and you can join us. Guess what one of the classes are? It's all about portraits, which is tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is about portraits, but I'm also teaching a portrait class on the cruise. It's called Peaceful Portraits. This is the first one of the series. I have 5 different peaceful portraits that are going to be used as samples for the class so that you can be inspired to make your own peaceful portrait, all with thread. We're going to learn several different techniques. This is Peaceful Portrait. I think this is number 4. Yeah, this is number 4, where I added some hand stitching. And then the latest one, which I just finished this week, I needed some sewing and quilting time after teaching at the quilt show. You know, when we go to a quilt show, we get inspired. Hello, everyone who's popping in. Hello to Wilda. So glad that you're here. Hello to Pam. And I see that Dee is here also. Hello, Dee. Welcome, welcome. You're a new student in the free motion quilting class. I'm so glad to have you in the online class. And then Lori is here. She is our chat moderator on YouTube. Any questions you have, any links you need for resources, Lori is going to help you out. And hello, Star Point Stitches from Richmond, Texas. And Latanya is here. Welcome. Lots of new ladies. I'm so glad that you're here. Linda is here. Hello, Linda. And Glenn, welcome, welcome. And Sabrina is back from Savannah, Georgia. Welcome back. We've missed you, Sabrina. Welcome, welcome. So, getting back to the portraits, this is Peaceful Portrait number 4. And after the quilt show, I was inspired to start stitching. I don't get to stitch as much for fun, but even as I stitch for classes, I still have some fun. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start another peaceful portrait that I had an idea for. And I finished her today. You want to take a look? Let me know in the chat if you want to see Peaceful Portrait number 5. Number 5, Peaceful Portrait number 5. We can take a look at her. Let me know if you want to see her. Each one is a little different. And when we bring on our guest, she's going to talk about her style of portrait making. Our styles are a little bit different, but I know you're going to be inspired by both of our styles. So Deb says definitely. Tonya wants to see number 5. Absolutely. And Loretta is here. Hey, Loretta. So glad that you're here from Delaware. Welcome. So glad that you're here. And Glenn says, of course we do. Let's look at number 5. And each one has something a little different. I like to push the creative envelope. Do you like to do that? If you're not quilting in a series, I recommend that. That helps you push your creativity. Since there are so many people new, go back to my YouTube channel and look for our conversation, Quilt Conversations Live Conversation, Quilting in a Series. It was a fun conversation. So here's number 5. I'm not going to delay anymore. I know you really want to see her. Here she is. Here is number 5. I just finished putting on the binding and the hanging sleeve today. I think she turned out fantastic. And there are a lot of things on this one that are different than the rest. But we don't have time for that because I want you to meet our guest. Diane says, nice. She likes it. Thank you, Diane. Yes. Oh, you love the peaceful portraits. Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate that. I really am enjoying making these all thread. Now I did add one little element that the others don't have. I use some watercolors on this one. So that's the only one I'll share. There are other things that are different, but I'll save that for later. Let's learn about our guest. Let's learn about our guests. Let's slowly remove all of these. And I want to introduce you to Veronica Mays. Veronica Mays is a Rhode Island native whose background is in writing and drama. She's worked in the newspaper industry, which is kind of interesting to me because my first career was also as a journalist. But then she entered the teaching profession. She taught high school English in Rhode Island, Alaska, and Italy. Her passion for art quilting soon began to outpace her desire to be in the classroom. She often states, I'd rather be quilting. I think many of us can echo those sentiments, right? In 2019, she finished her teaching career rather, to pursue art quilting in earnest. She is partial to using African inspired fabric to create pieces that reflect her culture. Art quilts and portrait quilts using applique are her favorite designs. She began adding quilted coats and quilted postcards to her repertoire. May's art quilts have been exhibited nationwide, and she's been featured in the January 2023 edition of Quilt Folks magazine. In July of 2024, she was selected as the Rhode Island Magazine's Artisan to Watch. And then she published a book. In 2024, she published her first book of poetry, Heart Open Wide, based on her quilting and her first trip to Ghana. Let's welcome Veronica Mays to Cook Conversations Live. Everyone, give her a warm welcome. Hello,
Thank you.
Veronica.
Hello, Geraldine. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much.
It is such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome, welcome. I'm excited to share with quilters a little bit about your journey with quilting and with portrait quilts and postcard quilts. But before we get there, how did you get started with quilting? And why did you choose art quilting?
In 2004, my husband, who was a federal firefighter, got stationed in Fairbanks, Alaska. I was thinking, what are we going to do out there? We had three daughters who were young and probably, yeah, one in elementary, one in middle school, one in high school. And I was interested in quilting. I thought I'd have more time because I didn't have as many obligations in a new location. I took a class at Joann's and learned how to make, use a rotary cutter and make traditional quilts. And I still have that quilt to this day. I loved it. I made maybe a second and third quilt there, but the kids were young and they needed my attention. And so I kind of put it away until 2015. And I started picking up my pieces of fabric and playing. And then I went on Google. I did a search for African quilts, and I found Aisha Lamana's book, Scrap Easy, and fell more in love with quilting.
Okay, so tell us how you approach making your quilts. How do you decide how to tell a story with your art quilts? What message do you want to convey from your quilts?
I think quite often I have a call for artists that I'll see that intrigued me, and I'll think about what that title means to me, and I'll sit on it for days, sometimes a few weeks, and then I start developing the idea in my head. I'm not a great sketcher, but I'm an okay sketcher, and I have Google images and free websites to draw from. And then I also would take photographs because I'm always careful about copyright. So my most recent series, based on the praise is what I do. My daughter was visiting, and I said, I need you to get some praise poses, and I guided her. And she said, Mom, I don't want anyone to see these pictures. She had on a pair of shorts, and those clothes now have all the women have dresses, and it doesn't look anything like her, but I wanted to get the proportions correct.
Okay, so some of your inspiration for your art quilts come from participating in exhibits. Is that what you're saying? That you get inspired by the call for a specific story or a theme for the exhibit, and then you start to sketch, and that's how you start your quilts.
Yes. Although, of course, as you know, inspiration is everywhere. So all the ideas I have in my head will never be executed in my lifetime. But I come out here every day and
So then, how do you marry this call for artists for an exhibit with your desire to incorporate African print fabric? Because I see that your work features a lot of African print fabric, inspired fabric.
yes, I tend to be someone who wings it. So, I've got all this fabric and I have a bin full of pre bonded fabric. So it's got probably heat and bond light already attached to it. I have a lot of the skin tones already ready to be cut out so that I'm ready. And then I play. I take this that I have or this idea that I have, lay out different colors. I'm not really good at using the color wheel, but I have them. So
Hmm.
I pretty much use what I like, and I incorporate a lot of African
Okay, well, what about us looking at some of your quilts and your portrait quilts and kind of tell us the story behind them? Let us know how it got started. Was it for an exhibit? Was it something that you just wanted to do yourself? Here's the first one. Tell us about this one.
fabric. In 2022, the 200th anniversary of Harriet Tubman's birth was celebrated in both Philadelphia and in Dorchester, Maryland. And the call was from two different groups that I'm aware of. And so I did three Harriet Tubman quilts for one group and three for another. This one was a gift for one of her family members that's a descendant of one of her siblings because she didn't have any children of her own. And she adopted a daughter who didn't have children. This was one of the descendants. And I went on YouTube and looked it up. Not YouTube, on Google, looked up the image and created this as a gift for one of the family members that was at that display.
Okay, and let's take a look at another one.
Bootsy Collins, the Kayumba Quilters of Ohio, were doing African American artists from Ohio. And when I found out that Bootsy was from Ohio, I thought, well, he'll be fun to create because so lively, right? And that silver fabric was a challenge for me because I almost always use cotton. I know how cotton acts and I know how it behaves, but I played with it and I put my heat and bond light under it and we had us a good time creating Bootsy.
I love it how you were able to convey his movement. It's not static. I mean, even when I look at it, I think like I want to start dancing because it just has that energy in it. It's really well executed. I love it.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
let's look at another one.
That again came from the Harriet Tubman series, and Harriet Tubman was known as a master of disguise. So if you were able to zoom in, you could see that I have sewn facial features. One of her roles was as a nurse. Of course, she wouldn't have been a traditional nurse. She would have used medicinals and herbs, excuse me. And I did her as an escapee. I did her as returning to the South. And so this one was based on the fact that she was also a nurse. She was also a Union spy.
Well, I'm also intrigued by many of your quilts that we don't necessarily see facial features. What
Right.
helps you decide whether to emphasize or de emphasize facial features?
I think sometimes I just feel like the person could use their imagination. Also, some of my trial and error on the detailed ones. I mean, I've gotten better and I know a little bit more about what to do, but I think it's just on an individual basis of which quilt I'm working on.
Okay, okay. I guess it depends on the story then and what you want to
It does.
convey, how you want the viewer to feel as they're looking at the details of the quilt.
Yes, and I
Okay.
love it when a viewer says to me, "Oh, this means that to me," and it's something that I would have never thought of. I love when
Oh,
they tell me.
wow, that's wonderful. That means there's some inspiration happening. There's different elements in your quilt that are inspiring different thought process, different emotions, different interpretations, maybe even experiences that they can relate to just by looking at your quilt. I think I love that about storytelling quilts.
I do too. I love them.
So I just picked up another one with the three ladies. Tell us about this and some of the techniques that you used for their clothing. I find that very interesting.
This was a call for European patchwork, and they were looking for a certain type of heritage quilt. I submitted it. I didn't get in, but that's okay. The dresses are based on Aisha Lumumba's book Scrap Easy, and one thing that she says, which I find to be true, is the more scraps you use, somehow the more scraps you make. And so I had done, I think, a dress in every Roy G. Biv color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, plus white, plus black. And so I just had the dresses kind of on my design wall. And when that call went out, I selected these three and came up with the women, with their hands in the different poses. And I have a lot of fun doing the hair. I really had fun doing that afro because it just was so big. And then I let the feet go into the border there. So that was kind of cool to me.
I love the layering of the different elements inside the quilt. The other thing that I wondered about is how do you find inspiration when it's not a particular person like Harriet Tubman or a musician? How do you find inspiration for the face shape or the hands or the arms?
I think that I just love people. So I think I'm always trying to decide how can I make this interesting? Would it be interesting to me if I saw this piece? And like I said, inspiration is everywhere. So I enjoy posing them. Sometimes it's like playing with paper dolls. And
Yes,
that
I
part I
can.
really love.
I remember paper dolls. Yes, that was really fun dressing up our paper dolls. I mean, the other thing that certainly resonates is that there's some cultural influences in how you create each of your pieces.
Yes,
Is that true?
that's very true. I love the opportunity to create something that reflects me. My husband tells me I should try to be more universal. And I say, but this is what I want to do. And doesn't happen to be an artist. So even though he can sometimes give good advice, this isn't a piece of advice that I've chosen to take.
I certainly understand that. I think that is the distinction, is that in the art world in general, is that we want to hear the voices of the artists. We don't want to hear the same voice over and over but from a different person, right? When I pick up the
Right.
phone to call someone, I'm expecting to hear Veronica's voice. So when I go to a Veronica Mays art show, I want to see Veronica, right?
Yes,
Yeah. So I
exactly.
I love that. This one is very intriguing. There's so many different things in this that are departure from the previous ones, where we really couldn't see the face, but we still got the sense and the mood of the piece because of the body language. This has both the body language and language in the face. You captured a certain mood. How did you do that?
Again, it was the Ohio group, the Kaumba Quilters of Ohio, and they were looking for native Ohioans. And Toni Morrison has always intrigued me. I remember starting her book, Song of Solomon, about 3 or 4 times, and I just couldn't get past page 20. I didn't know what she was talking about. And then my friend Carlotta said, just keep reading. And I went to page 40 and I was hooked. It became one of my favorite books. And some of her other books have challenges for me too, but I have pressed on because she's such a prolific, gifted writer. And she's from Lorraine, Ohio. And I thought, oh, I want to create her. I had a lot of fun creating her hair because I let the fabric speak to me. And I did want to do the details on her face. It was really important to me. So I purposed to get it right. I prayed. I sat in this space and just kept playing till I got it the way I hoped I could get it.
Well, it's a beautiful piece on many levels.
Thank you.
And I I'm inspired by it. There's so many, I mean, even her eyes, her facial expression, even her hands, how you were able to capture her holding her head with her hands. I mean, I can feel her doing that, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I can feel it.
I
So I
understand that.
yeah, it's really beautiful. How do you
Thank you very much.
select how do you select backgrounds for your portraits?
I'm going to ask that question because I am enamored of text fabric, and that one does have a text in it. So I buy them ahead of time, and I keep a pile of text fabric that I get at quilt shops or that I buy online. And when it's time for me to come up with a background, I go into that stack and I say, "Oh, it's your turn to show up."
So, is this connected in some way to you being a writer, that you want to incorporate letters and words and text in your quilts?
It may be, I think I'm just drawn to it, but it could have to do with the fact that that's my background. Even with this fabric that has fake writing, like not they're not real words, it's just kind of a scribble. I like those as well.
Wow. I bet it adds a level of intrigue to your quilts, because a viewer might say, what does that say? Or what does that mean? Or how is it connected? It allows the gaze to linger longer on the piece, I think.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that that negative space might get some words on it. I'm not sure, perhaps.
Okay, all right. And now this was one of my favorites. I just love this one because quilters and sewers alike can relate to this.
I took that class online with Cassandra Allen, and I I made two because it was so much fun. I thought, oh yes, like you said, we can relate to it, and I just love putting all those fabrics together to create that
And I see
sewer.
you incorporating the African prints, and
Yes,
just, yeah, well done, well done.
thank you. And
So, what
so
I'd
much
like
fun.
to talk about now is how did you go from these big pieces of portraits to small postcards? When did that transition or addition happen in your quilting art journey?
In 2018, I took a class at the National African American Quilt Convention with Kimberly Cartwright. And the sign up was for quilted postcards. And I thought, wow, I want to learn how to do that. So I went on YouTube before I went to the convention and I made one, but mine was kind of flimsy. And fortunately for me, when I went to her class, I sort of had a one on one situation. And she taught me how to make them so that they actually had some stiffness to them, how to layer them in many ways. And they are completely mailable. And I've probably over time, I've made 1,000 quilted postcards because there's so many things you can do on this little scale, 4 by 6, and they're just fun. Again, the paper doll factor in there, and just changing the color and playing, and I just love
Wow.
it.
I love that you find that you can take something that you love to do, a passion, and reduce it into something that keeps you inspired and keeps your creativity going in such a small package, but with big impact, just as big of an impact as a large quilt. So, talk a little bit about each of the cards that I'm going to share and maybe part of the evolution of how, because you've made 1,000, I could only imagine how you started and how they've transitioned into other techniques, maybe other fabric choices, those that are storytelling, any of those features that you want to share as we look at each one. Let's talk about this one first.
The fabric on her hat or her headpiece and her top came from Ghana. I went to Ghana for the first time in March, and I had a suitcase full of fabric. And I wanted to do something as soon as I got home. Unfortunately, I had COVID, so I had to lay down for a week or so. And then I wanted to do something. And so I thought, well, let's make some of these women with the Ghanaian fabric so that I could get something done right away.
That is a neat way when we go on these excursions or journeys and we come back with our fabric treasures. We want to get started, and it doesn't have to be a big project. So I like the postcards for that. Is this also one of them?
That's another one of the Ghanaian fabrics, yes. You know,
And
you've
I
got
see.
that little space, but I try to make good use of it. There's some more text fabric back there.
Yes, I noticed the text fabric. I love the fabric choices on both of these. So different, but each beautiful in um, by themselves. Let's see.
Thank
How
you.
about this one here?
I love doing the dress form. Sometimes I'll do that one. Now that fabric is the same as the one next to it. Yeah, and I'll do like the little dress form pole underneath and the at the top as well. But on this one, I just did the dress alone.
Certainly reminiscent of paper dolls. You know, we would have the hat, the dress form, the gloves, the shoes, all of that. I just love that idea.
Yeah, and when your little tabs would fall off, you'd be so brokenhearted.
I know. That's true. So does it take a lot to make the postcards? Is some might be intimidated by a large art piece. Can making a postcard art piece help free us from that intimidation? Does it help us in some way?
I think so because you can either do something that is specific, or you can just take a lot of scraps, layer them on your foundation, stitch all over it, and then put your other layers together, and just step by step, and it's gonna come out beautiful.
And this one, tell us about this piece, Grace.
Yeah, so I do love to use a lot of scriptures on my labels. The scripture fabric that I had these grace and peace and love separate. So I'll put that on there. That layer that says Iowa is a fabric that had all 50 states. However, the only state whose name was misspelled was Rhode Island, of course, and it was spelled Island was spelled Ilsand. And I called them and let them know, and they said, "Oh, we'll fix that in the future." I thought maybe this was intentional, but it was the only one. So
Wow.
that's just a birthday cake.
A birthday cake. Well, that's certainly a small world, the only one, and it's your state. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at another one.
That fabric, if I could get my hands on a bolt of that fabric, I would. I bought that early in my career, and I bought 2 yards. And that was before I went to the first National African American Quilt Convention. I met Toya Thomas there. She's on today. And Toya told me, if you love a fabric, buy 5 yards. If you like it, buy three. Well, I wish I had known then what I know now because I can't find it anymore. But I would have bought the bolts.
Wow. Wow. It's beautiful. It says a lot. And if it was in the early part of your quilting career, it certainly was a turning point because now most of what you do is this type of art quilts with
Yes.
African fabric, storytelling. Because just this little piece of fabric on a postcard, if I got this in the mail, I want to know what's the story? What's the inspiration behind this? And who are these women? It's just
Yes.
very intriguing. I love it a lot. And one more, the
So
dancer.
this is this is a little Soul Train dancer, and I just love that little motion that she's got going on. And I change the hair up sometimes. Sometimes I'll give her two Afro puffs or, an afro. And I have a lot of fun. She's got the little platform shoes on. So she's fun to
Oh,
make.
I love this one. This is one that I would send to my sister who loves to dance. That's her second hobby to cruising. She loves dancing and cruising, so this would be
Nice.
perfect for her. I love the choice of the background fabric. How do you go through your stash when you're looking? I know you like words, but if you're not using words, what other background fabric really works well for silhouettes?
Anything that's sort of light so that it can still fall back, but has all that fun. That's got all those swirls in it. Even on that Bootsy one, it's got all those swirls happening. And Toya actually helped me pick that one because I was trying to think. I didn't want to spend money. I buy a lot of fabric every year, but I thought I want to use what I have. And so I just love looking at things that have, I don't buy that many plain fabrics, I'll say that many solids.
So, when you talk about fabric, we can see part of your fabric stash right behind you. And you just said that you don't buy many plain fabrics, very colorful. And a lot of ladies have challenges with picking colors. What tips would you give for someone who wants to start either a postcard a portrait or a actual quilt size portrait, maybe 20 inches by 20 inches, and they need to pick a background or colors?
Right. I would definitely go with something that's on the lighter side. Like I like a lot of sky fabric too. And skies make great backgrounds. Or, something batik. Love batiks. So as long as it's not too dark so that the featured part would stand out, I would go with something like that. And then depends on what kind of colorway they love. I'm so attracted to blue. I'm sort of obsessed with it.
I see. I see. Because, we always have new quilters and they want to get started. What was one of the lessons that you wish you had learned as a young quilter that you could share with one now about getting started with art quilts?
I would play with the fabric I have, and if I don't have any fabric, then when I went shopping, I'd get probably fat quarters or a charm pack because you're working really small, and the charm pack's going to give you 42 pieces. For those that don't know, a charm pack has 42 pieces of fabric that are 5 inches by 5 inches, and they're all coordinated. So you probably get two or three of each one, and then you can use that to try to move it around to see what you come up with. Or, even if you just cut out a circle out of one of the pieces and put it on top of the coordinating piece, you're going to have something that's pretty.
Okay, I think that's really good advice, as well as buying at least 5 yards of the fabric you really love. Right. So,
Yes,
what is new for you? Let's go to your website. I know that in the past you have, and you probably still are, teaching postcard classes. Is that correct?
that's correct. I do. And the students, they amaze themselves when they pull out their fabric or if they borrow, get some from me. They're really happy with the result once it's all trimmed up and the edges zigzagged.
And so you teach both in person classes as well as virtual for the
Yes,
postcards.
yes,
Okay. And if anyone wants to contact you, they can just go to your website.
correct.
And I
Absolutely.
think if they click on, I think it's teaching, they can send you a message and get
Yes,
more information.
that's
And of
correct.
course,
That'd be great.
and if you're interested, which I'm sure everyone is now after seeing just a little bit of your work, just to go to your website and they'll see a lot more of your beautiful quilts, storytelling quilts. But I also noticed at the top it says book. You had a book published this year.
Yes, my first.
Congratulations. That's a
Thank
big
you so much.
undertaking.
I
Tell us
was
about it.
on Martin Luther King Day this year. I was going to be the speaker at one of the programs, and I wrote a poem. And I said to myself, I'm going to set an alarm every night at 11:15 that says quilt poem. And that was supposed to be a reminder to write a poem every day. Now, I didn't write a poem every day, but between January 15th and March 16th, I wrote about 10 poems. And they were all quilt related, sewing related, and they were fun. And then on March 17th through the 29th, I think it was, I went to Ghana for the first time. And when I got there, I went to sleep at 11 o'clock their time and woke up 4 hours later at 3 in the morning. So I had jet lag, and I feel like the poetry just poured out of me. So I wrote a poem about jet lag, and I wrote a poem about being there and how I never ever had to code switch. I could just be myself. I felt so accepted and loved. And so I was writing a poem a day. And on our bus trips, our excursions, I would share the poetry with the people on the bus. And someone said to me, "When are you going to write a book?" And I said, "I'm not writing a book." At that time, I did not know that I was writing a book. And then I got home and I had these 9 poems based on being in Ghana. And I looked at the quilts that I had and I thought, you could put these together and make that happen. And that's what I did. I went through an online program, published it, and happy to say it's up and running.
Well, fantastic. Where can quilters get your book?
They can get it on Amazon. They can get it on Barnes and Noble. They can get it on something called Lulu, or they can get it from me if they wanted to do a signed copy.
So Guess who has a signed copy? I do. And I've read several of them. Would you do a reading of one of my favorites called Food and Fabric?
Absolutely. Thank you for the
Let's do a
compliment.
reading for one of her poems. Let's take a look here. Find it. There we go. Food and Fabric.
How can I snack between these layers of these quilted blocks? I'm sitting here sewing in my jammies and my socks, but I'm hungry. You can't touch fabric with dirty fingers. You try to stay focused, but that hunger lingers. Whatever you do, don't stop sewing. As much as you can, you gotta keep going. When you lose that momentum, it's hard to restart. Push past desire, follow fabric's heart. Hunger is the enemy of the artsy woman. Perseverance is the tool that keeps her going. Alas, we gotta eat. Ain't it true? Ain't it true? So get your snack going. Do what you gotta do. Stitch those blocks and keep it going till you have a whole quilt. You be knowing. Quilts and food, they consume my mind. Nevertheless, it's my quality time to snack and eat, quilt and sew. These are some things this artist know. How about you? Does art consume your soul? Fabric endeavors are such a worthy goal. It looks like obsession, but really it's not. Cotton and thread are measures of my heart.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for reading. Beautiful. It certainly makes a difference when the author reads the book. And Terry says, "What talent?" And I would agree, what talent.
Thank you,
Now,
Terry.
we have a few moments for some questions. So put some questions that you have for Veronica in the chat. And let's see if you want to know about postcard quilts. Do you want to know about portrait quilts? Any questions for Veronica? Let's see. I'm scouring the chat right now. And Veronica, is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't so far as I look for some of those questions?
I wanted to also share that one of the things that I do that is dear to my heart is I am on the AIDS Quilt Rhode Island quilt panel. And so I do the background panels and the workshops with the group. And that's really precious to me to remember people who have lost their lives to HIV. That's one of the other endeavors that I take great pleasure in doing.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is a wonderful way. I know that in many quilting groups and quilters in general, they make and give quilts away. That's just part of like quilters' DNA to use a
Hmm.
quilt to remember someone, to comfort someone. So that's wonderful to hear. So, oh, we do have a question from Diane. She says, "How does she design her people for her quilts? Do you cut them by hand or machine?"
I asked my daughters for a cutting machine on Christmas of 2022. And the only thing I've cut with that has been some coral for a mermaid quilt. And I don't know why I haven't used it. I do cut by hand. It seems actually silly of me to do that, but I feel like I'm always like, oh, I got to get this done now. I did a bunch of mermaid postcards. I think I did about 40 of them, and there were four designs, but I cut each and every one of those little mermaids by hand. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of her question?
She was wondering, how I can put it up again. How does she design her people for her quilts? Do you cut them by hand or machine? So is it by
So for the
hand?
people, yeah, yeah, I cut them by hand, but designing them, I make them up, and
You
that's
make
why
it.
sometimes the proportions aren't quite right. But I draw them.
Okay. We have a question from Joy. How do you do the words? Embroidery, printing on the computer?
The words that you're seeing on the backgrounds, that's the fabric itself. I do hand cut some uh, words that I make myself.
Okay. We have another question from Rhonda. She asks, Veronica, what is some of your favorite quilts you've made and why?
Hi, Rhonda. My absolute favorite quilt is a quilt that I made of my three daughters. They're sitting there, doing that heart hand thing. And they won't pose, yeah, they won't pose for me. And they never sit in birth order, even on that book cover. So that's my absolute favorite. I do love the Bootsy quilt. I'm really happy with how he came out. So I do love making quilts with people, doing things that tell a story. Right now, I have a project going on in the Facebook group African American Sampler Quilts, and every 2 weeks we release a block based on the heritage of people coming from Africa through the diaspora and what it was like. The one that I made, I call it "How We Made It Over," but
Hmm.
for the block release, I haven't given it a name. We're just making the blocks. We're on block number 7.
Okay, all right. We have a question from Madonna about your postcards. Are the cards mailable with or without envelopes?
I love this question because the answer is yes, and you can mail them without an envelope. People sometimes are afraid to do so because they think somebody's going to steal it. I have successfully mailed them. I use a clear envelope. You just have to take it inside to the clerk and ask them to hand cancel it, and that way it won't go through the machine and get mangled. And so, yes, they are mailable, but most people that mail them will put them in an envelope because they think it will not make it to the destination.
Okay, especially if it's a beautiful postcard. Now, I love the tip about getting it hand stamped to protect
Hmm.
the artwork. I didn't know that. So, if anyone's making postcards or thinking about it, that's a valuable tip. We have another question. What fusible do you use for your art quilts?
I use them all, but I buy Heat and Bond Light by the bulk. One time, though, Heat and Bond Heavy was on sale at Walmart for $1 a yard, so I bought the bulk. I wouldn't buy that again because it's a little too heavy, but I usually use Heat and Bond. I've also used Wonder Under um, and the
Okay.
glue sticks as well.
All right. We have another question from Lenora. She says, how long did it take you to write your book and did you self publish?
All the poems that are in the book were written between January 15th and March 30th of this year. So that's how long it took to write the book. The coordinating quilt pictures were quilts that I made over the years. And I just tried to find something that matched up with the theme of each poem. And yes, I did self publish.
Okay. We do have a question about the postcards. Everyone's intrigued about the postcards.
They're
Is
so
there a
fun.
tutorial? Do you have a YouTube channel, right? Is there a tutorial?
I do have a YouTube channel. There are so few videos on there. I tend to mostly publish on TikTok. So there's no tutorial yet, but it's very doable. Yes.
Okay, very doable. Let's see. So, what else? Let's see. Awesome interview. Lots of, we're getting wonderful comments here. They're saying thank you for answering the
Thank you.
questions
Thank you.
and your outstanding artistry. Thank you, Glenn, for commenting.
So much
Oh,
fun. Hi, Glenn.
Toya has another question. If you had no deadlines, no special calls, what would you make next? A quilt, a postcard, or a coat, and why?
What I would make next is a project that she knows about. It's quilted sneakers, and you build them from the foundation up. So that's what I'm gonna
Wow.
make.
Wow,
Quilted
that sounds
sneakers.
exciting.
It is
Deanna says,
exciting.
thank you very much, that this was a real treat. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Deanna.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they
I fell
love
into
the.
the coat. Mhm.
Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
fell into the coats unexpectedly. This was the second one I made. The first one I made on my own using Rachel Clark's pattern, but this one was made during COVID using an online class that she taught. So that was helpful, and I'm kind of in love with the coat making.
That is on my list, Veronica, is to make a quilted coat. That is on my list, and I can't wait to get started. And I'd like to invite you back to talk about quilted coats. Will you come back to Quilt Conversations
I would
Live?
love to do that. Yes, thank you so much. Thank
Awesome.
you for having me today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. It's my pleasure. We are at the top of the hour. Boy, I can't believe it. An hour has gone by so quickly. We've been inspired by your beautiful quilts and your poetry. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. God bless you.
Is there any last words of inspiration you'd like to share with quilters?
Absolutely. If you are new or whether you're new or not, please keep on touching fabric, buying fabric, cutting it up, sewing it back together, enjoying it, and stay with it.
Stay with it. Don't give up. Have fun. Play with fabric. But one last thing before you go. You've mentioned throughout the interview various quilters that have helped you along your journey. Would your
Mhm.
advice be to new quilters to take classes? Has that
I
made a
think taking
difference for you?
classes, it definitely made a difference for me. And because when you take a class, you can go home and expand upon what you learned. And so it just helps you to learn techniques. I mean, there are things that I need to learn. I need to learn paper piecing. Everyone tells me how easy it is. It hasn't been easy for me. In my opinion, it requires me to think backwards. But I'm going to master that one day too. So I do
Okay.
like classes and I do like playing.
I do like playing. Okay, the two go well together. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you here and there. I can't wait to learn more about your quilting coats the next time we get together.
Thank you so much. Check me out on TikTok.
Yes, of course. Everyone, check her out on social media, TikTok, Facebook, her website. If you have a guild that's interested in doing the postcards, she'd be happy to hear from you. Just go to her website. Let me go back to that real quick so they can get the address and get in touch with her. Order the book, look at more of her artwork on her website,
Hmm.
and be inspired. Thank you, Veronica. We'll
Thank
see
you
you.
very, very much.
You are welcome. Good night.
Good night.
So, everyone, wasn't that wonderful? Veronica is so inspiring. I think I want to spend my Saturday making a postcard. What about you? I don't think I have to spend the whole Saturday, do I? It's a small piece. I can try it out. Terry says, wonderful interview. Yes, Veronica, thank you for your inspiration. So, everyone, thank you for being here at Quilt Conversations Live. If you didn't know, we meet here on the first and third Friday of the month, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we talk all things quilting. And occasionally we have a wonderful interview to be inspired by other quilters who are just like us, right? They're on a creative journey. Join us next time. The next time we meet will be October 1st. I think that's the first Friday of the month. Come back. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up and don't keep it a secret. If you enjoyed it, tell your friends and come back. We have a wonderful time every first and third Friday. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next time for another Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. Let's see. This is my first visit. Looking forward to joining again. Wonderful. I have to look at the comments before I go. I know I said goodbye, but I need to look at the comments one more time. Marcia says, I got to do a coat. All right. So Veronica inspired that. That's wonderful. And Rhonda says, my new happy hour, quilting conversations. Wonderful. Okay. I'm really going to say good night this time. See you next time for another Quilt Conversations Live.